Good morning. I hope you enjoyed that. I'll let this play in the background while I talk a little bit because I timed this quite badly. There's way more gameplay than I could fit into like a slightly under 5-minute song. If you like this song, please check out the person that created it. It's in the description. I've tried not to use not free songs, like free royalty nonsense songs, but I've decided to commit a crime and use this one. But I really like this song. I really like this recent genre that I've found that people do, where they combine Minecraft songs and Pink Floyd songs. I think it's really funny and it surprisingly works. And that's what this was. So please check that in the description because it's a really good song in my opinion. And there's a bunch of other stuff like this that you can just find through the power of the internet. This was the first week of CDS. It was pretty exciting. You'll notice that we lost twice with Gwen Tarek, but we did win with the Darius against what was one of the hardest lineups that we can possibly find. And there wasn't, I don't know, there was that big massive misplay in game 2, but aside from that I don't think it was the biggest. There was much that we could do otherwise. But we'll talk about the deck lists, we'll talk about the strategy I went into this week, we'll talk about the VOD reviews, just explicitly play by play, why I did why, all that good stuff. And I hope you enjoy. It's obviously, this intro was a little bit different to most normal intros, but I hope you enjoy nonetheless. Hope you enjoyed it. It wasn't perfectly done. I'm not going to redo all of that. It took so much effort to try and do all of the cuts. I'm not going to fix it up so that it fits into the time and all that. I just hope you enjoyed it. If you didn't enjoy it, that's fine. But I wanted to try something new. But week 1, Spidz versus Serket, we went 1 and 2. So if we look at what they had and what we had, right? They've got Twisted Fate, Rumble, Heimer, Jace, Lux, Scion, Master Yi, Braum, Vladimir Rise. And as I'm going to mention maybe a bunch of times, we've had Gwen, Pantheon, Varus, Alawi, Fiora, Darius, Thresh, Shen, and Tarek. Looking at there, and I've got this, which I copied from the last Google Slides, which I think is really useful. Just these descriptions of what they can bring. It's pretty obvious they're going to bring Rizier, right? I spelled were wrong. I botched this together in 10 minutes. Don't put too much credence into this Google Slides. I expected Rizier. I think Rizier is a genuinely obvious choice, especially against what's a bunch of mid-range champions, right? Run 3 Concussive Palms, run 3 Unworthy Souls, and you can beat me, right? So Rizier I thought was pretty much guaranteed. Jace, Lux, and Rumble Scion are the most real of the decks that are remaining in the thing. If you wanted to just go for the most powerful thing, you would pick Jace, Lux, and Rumble Scion. I thought the other options were Heimer, Lux, Braum, Vladimir, Rumble Scion, Heimer, just so you can run PNZ and your Rumble Heimer, and your Rumble Scion. TF Rumble, which would basically just be a Pirates deck, and then a double flock lineup, Rise and 2 flocks, again trying to beat up on all the mid-range stuff. Knowing that those were the options I assumed Capital would go for, I think I had 3 lineup ideas: anti-Rise, anti-mid-range, and anti-flock. So let's talk about what I ended up bringing to try and beat that. I gave up pretty quickly on anti-Rise, right? I thought about doing anti-Rise for quite a bit. My 3 aggro decks would have been something like a Gwen Darius, which was, a Nar Darius, which is pretty decent. A Gwen Alawi, which is honestly, out of all of the decks, I've messed around with maybe 25, 30 decks so far, which sounds like a lot. It's probably not as much as I can possibly do, just because I've got so many interplay options, right? I've really come to think better of my 10 champions than I was in the last video. Gwen Alawi, which genuinely is so much fun. You get to run shit like Shakedown and I don't know, just the way in which you can use Vulnerable and Hollowed with Overwhelm is just, it's so beautiful. I really like the way the deck plays. So Gwen Alawi, I'm really happy with. I will bring it one week because I just think it's amazing. And then a Thresh Shen, Fiora Shen, elusive fearsome aggro. You're in Greenglade duo and you sort of use Syncopation and Ghost to cheese your way into victory, right? Those were my 3 ideas for an aggro deck, right? There are a few things you can do with this. You can change Gwen from being with Alawi and then be with Darius. You've got Red Gwen, and then Nar might go with, say, your Thresh, and then you're just going to do, the Tristana Atro deck, but without Tristana, just, genuine small unit, boom. And then, I don't know, Darius, Alawi. Right, Alawi, Thresh, Alawi, Shen, or whatever. You've got options, right? You had options for other options. But fundamentally, just, these weren't beating Rise. And, you can't have an anti-Rise lineup that can't beat Rise. So I thought, okay, I'm going to redirect this to Jace Lux, which I thought was pretty likely that they're going to bring Jace Lux. I didn't think the double flock lineup was going to be that likely. And if they did bring double flock, I think there's a chance that with the fact that they don't have like really good flock champions, they would probably be able to do decently into those decks anyway. Besides like Twisted Fate's like a decent flock champion, but anyway. So I thought, okay, how can I beat Jace Lux? One is Pantheon Varus. I don't love the deck. I've played it maybe 5 or 10 times now. I'm acquiescent on it. I'll play it. It's not something I enjoy. I'd rather not play it. There's other Pantheon decks and Varus decks that I've messed around with now that are lots and lots of fun. Not Freljord Darius Bone Club, which does a great job of just like smacking the opponent. Like it just does what it needs to do properly. You can tech it with the freezes, you can tech it with stuns, you've got things you can do with Darius. And then third deck time. So I've got a few options. I can make a new third deck with the 6 champions I've got remaining, or I can rearrange those champions, right? Now, if you're looking at the analysis of what just happened, where we brought Gwentaric and thought you went 0 and 2, this is clearly a Roji moment with Malphite in Worlds. Like you like this deck, but it's clearly not working for you. You should have tried something else. But through testing, look, maybe Annie and I looked too much more on like the positives of all of this, and we didn't focus enough on like the lost states that we were having. But it just worked a lot of the time when you had just 1 or 2 things changed in the draw, right? I don't think I play this deck well, and I think these games do a really bad showing of the deck, but that's like, I can't say just never look at the bad showings, just only look at the good showings. That's not how decks work, right? But Gwentaric was really, really good into Jace Lux because they genuinely have no way of dealing with Out of the Way and Divine Judgment or Out of the Way and Lamb's Respite. If I get Out of the Way plus any of those off, the only win condition they have left is challenges in their go wide. So think of like Persuader and Jace, or just like going wide with like Hextech Handler or like the Forge Worker women, right? They could also run Mage Seeker Investigator, but they aren't on Mage Seeker Investigator, as you all have noticed. Or you may not have known because I didn't draw half the cards in my deck, but whatever. Other options were obviously Shen Fiora, which if you build Shen Fiora properly, you can definitely make it bigger than Jace Lux. And I think like, had I had more time, I would have probably justified Shen Fiora. Shen Fiora was only something we're thinking about doing in like the last day and a half or so. Same with Alawi Fiora. Both of these decks I only really remembered in the last day and a half or so. While Gwentaric, I was working on every single day this whole time. Gwentaric has changed a lot as a deck. It was originally some sort of like Sojourners and Eternal Dancers pile, right? And it worked pretty well. Like you had these really interesting board states with all these cards, and Taric plus Infernum and Taric plus Divine Judgment are some of the most interesting combos you can pull off, because when you target Taric with the can't die thing, the +1 still goes to everything. So it ends up being +2/+0 to everything, and 2 of your units can't die. And the amount of pressure that applies on an open attack is actually quite powerful. But that never had happened. I don't even think I drew Taric in any of these games, which was unfortunate because I think Taric is surprisingly good in this deck, because Taric with a little bit of strength while still having like 4 health and tough, or 5 when you do the Pale Cascade, it's not easy to deal with Taric when you get that sort of stuff to happen. Anthrax Pantheon was another thing that we've tested out, which you just run a bunch of the self-kill stuff and they all target you, right? Like Glimpse Beyond, the like the Maokai card that spawns 2 saplings. It was nerfed and then buffed like a million times. Tarash, like all of these things self-target, Soul Cleave, and you just level up your Pantheon, and then you get to run Atrocity and you win. And good thing nothing happened to Atrocity. There is no like Atrocity nerf in Basing Say. What can I blame for the loss? For game 2, it was genuinely my own misplay. I tried to have like a little cute moment where I talk about that misplay. We'll go over it more when we go through the games. With game 3, it's mostly my inexperience with deck building, especially regarding techie cards. Now you're gonna, without having seen the deck list, because you guys haven't seen the deck list yet, you're gonna look at the deck list and you're gonna look at what we got in the draw and you're like, Jesus Christ, how many like Spacey sketches and super cool star charts and hushes and gifts from beyond are you on? And the answer is 1 of all of those, right? That's probably too many 1 of techie cards compared to the amount of just genuine normal stuff we need to run. But like, we didn't draw any of our 2 Vengeances. I know I discarded one that was also a misplay, which we can talk about later. I didn't draw my Ruination. I didn't draw Out of the Way until the very last, or the penultimate draw of that final game. We never drew Divine Judgment. I did discard a Lamb's Respite at one point, which I also think may have been a misplay, but that one's more arguable. It's just unfortunate with how the draws ended up coming out. I think I could have had some different deck building though, especially regarding just like more regular units, and more regular spells. But I don't know. I think the deck, it was the best I thought I could make the deck at the time. Some side thoughts. if you're bored with the meta right now, I know new cards are about to be released like in a few hours after uploading this, so maybe this is like a bad time to explain this. But if you're really, really bored in the meta because you feel as if like nothing's interesting, it's all this Rise stuff that you don't enjoy fighting, the matchups don't feel that interesting, I really recommend just picking 10 champions and limiting yourself to those 10 champions and just like playing ladder. I know this doesn't apply to Jansport who hates ladder, but like just play the game with just 10 champions. It's surprising how much fun you'll have like trying to force yourself to make these neat ideas work. You can steal one of the people's CDS stuff. You can make your own list of 10. I have really thoroughly enjoyed just playing ladder with these random decks that I've built that are forcing me to use champions in a combination that I wouldn't have necessarily done otherwise, right? Which is something that I wanted to do for a while. If you remember, like, my channel feedback video, I had a similar idea where I wanted to combine champions together to make something. I think I made this before... I think I made that before I learnt about the CDS. But anyway, and I'm super glad I brought Runeterra because Atrocity, which you guys never fucking saw in the deck, but Atrocity just got nerfed. So I'm really glad I brought Runeterra before Atrocity got nerfed. Now that I've got 2 SI champions and Atrocity is pretty important for some of the lethals with those champions, I'm a little bit concerned, but that's okay. It's not the biggest issue in the world. Let's quickly go over the decks. I have unfortunately not had the time to put them in Runeterra.ar. I haven't had that much time in general to record stuff. But I wanted to quickly go over the decks just so you can see what cards I was playing around, what cards you should have seen, etc, etc. Okay, first off is Pantheon Varus. Pantheon Varus, I think this is like a stock standard build. I've genuinely not touched a card in this. I stole this from somewhere and never looked at it again. Played a few games of it, seems fine. It was banned. I don't think anyone needs an explanation on Pantheon Varus. It's Pantheon Varus. Nah, Darius. I stole a Ricorex deck and changed a few cards around. I think like I stole a Ricorex deck that was on Mastering Runeterra and just moved some things around. I added Patty Porra because I thought it'd be really good into Jace Lux. Jace Lux can't really deal with a Patty Porra plus a Bone Club. And it just felt good. I think I removed like one decisive maneuver. I added like some Three Sisters because I wanted to be really good into Scion and stuff. So I thought some freezes might be nice. Also against like Jace Lux, I might want to entomb a Jace or a Lux or something. And if they brought like a random big nonsense stuff, I thought Three Sisters might be fine. But this deck felt fine. They don't have any Shadow Isles, so Bone Club was never like a concern of mine. Like I was never going to be quietest. And they only have one heavy metal. They ended up bringing weapon removal, but it didn't end up mattering at all. This all felt fine. And then Runeterra. Let's talk about Runeterra. So this is my Runeterra deck. I just realized I never drew Sunhawk in any of those games either. I'm not claiming this deck is perfect in terms of the way it's built, but this deck surprisingly works more than you'd think. When you get out of the way and you combine it with any of these cards, it feels pretty decent. With Foya, so one of the issues with out of the way plus Lamb's Respite is that if they kill whatever unit you're planning on Lamb's Respiting, you'll lose the Lamb's Respite and you're already like generally tempo negative because you've played out of the way and you're playing a deck that needs to just like outgrind. Missing out on a Lamb's Respite is basically game over. But when you do it on your offensive turn, they have to kill Sparklefly or else Sparklefly will be invincible and have like 3 hollowed, and that hollowed will be permanent. If they kill Sparklefly, it just goes an opulent Foya, and frankly, getting that ephemeral unit to be permanent in a deck that's pretty unit light is pretty good. I really enjoyed the way both Divine Judgment and Lamb's Respite played in this deck. Typically, the play patterns end up involving having a Foya, using a Gwen to offset some of the negative tempo you're going to get out of the way. You play out of the way at some point. Divine Judgment plus Tarek basically wins you the game because you've done it on 2 units in one action and also gotten a massive tempo swing by giving +2/+0 to maybe 2 or 3 units, including the opulent Foya unit. Or you've made this invincible, which is also pretty good. Getting Hollow plus Sparklefly or Gwen, even without the out-of-the-way stuff, makes these a permanent threat that they need to be careful of. Pale Cascade and Tarek we're all intimately familiar with. Lamb's Respite and Out of the Way give you great Glimpse Beyond targets when you need to draw. If you just get this combo off, you can offset some of the draw issues with Glimpse Beyond. Ruination plus anything Out of the Way plus Lamb's Respite basically can also win you the game, especially going into Jace Lux. I maybe should have brought a second Ruination. But going into Jace Lux, like, Ruination just, like, wins that matchup because they're going to play something like an Acceleration Gate. You Ruination. You've still got Foya on the field. You either get to open attack, or if they play something, then you can play something else and deal with it. Sunhawk was one of the better additions to this deck. I really liked how Sunhawk played. You don't really have that many development punishes outside of Ruination and, like, you know, Super Cool Star Chart or Gifts from Beyond. So Sunhawk gave you so many positions that let you stay safe. Sketcher and Supercool Star Chart, I think, are interesting. I think there are a lot of good stuff that you can get off the Invoke side. I didn't know exactly what cards I wanted. I think Sketcher, Supercool Star Chart, Fangs, and Solari Priestess, as well as maybe Star Shaping, were all genuine considerations for this deck. Mostly from Sketcher and Supercool Star Chart, I wanted Double Stun, I wanted Elusive, or I wanted Draw. Draw makes a lot of sense as we're unit light, we need extra units. The draw would be nice. Double Stun as another development punisher, and also Elusive as another win condition, right? Elusive plus Gwen on the same time with like 2 or 3 foyer procs is pretty good, and you see that happen once in the game. But because we fucked up with the issue with the Veil Feast and me forgetting that Rumble will level up, it just didn't end up happening. Atro was really critical in this deck. What happens is, once again, once you get the out of the way, you don't even need a Sparkle. You don't even need Lamb's Respite. But once you get it out of the way and something's got like 6 strength or 7 strength, they need to constantly be scared of Atrocity. And a lot of the time they can't justify blocking against your quick attack units, against your Taric. They normally take a little bit of early chip from these units because they can't justify blocking them either. It just ends up working out well. But look, we had too many like awkward techie cards. Spacey Sketcher, Supergirl Star Chart, Gifts from Beyond, arguably Sunburst in comparison to Vengeance, and then arguably these. Like, I think that this deck needed more just genuine units. I took out Phantom Butler and I took out Conductor of the Mists. Both of these were pretty good, just like strong units that needed to do stuff. There's a little less threat density than there were in other versions of the deck. So other versions were running Sojourners, other versions were running Eternal Dancers, which Eternal Dancers is a pretty good like Divine Judgment target. Other versions were running, you know, X, Y, and Z, right? And if you've not fought a deck like this, what you're going to find is that when they play out of the way and you want to like attack into a Gwen and they've got Divine Judgment mana up, it's going to feel awful every single time you're attacking into them. Now, I don't need to play Divine Judgment until you threaten Gwen, right? I don't need to play Divine Judgment until you threaten Sparkleflight, or I get a massive tempo play off Taric. So once out of the way is happened, once out of the way is on the field, the game has changed so dramatically in terms of the way that Divine Judgment changes the way you think about the situation. They are forced to make aggressive trades and just hope that you don't have Divine Judgment, or play too slowly and you're going to slowly get your out of the way for your Gwen value, right? If we had drawn out of the way slightly earlier, I know like you will look at the exact play-by-play of the Jace Lux game and think, well, out of the way earlier wouldn't have actually helped you as much because you wouldn't have had Divine Judgment, you wouldn't have had XYZ. But the way in which the game would have been played, I probably wouldn't have done Moonglow on the... Not Moonglow, what's it called? Yeah, Moonglow. Moonglow on the Gwen. I probably would have been a bit more protective of other things. It just would have changed everything. I think my mulligans would have been slightly different as well, had I been thinking a bit differently about the matchups. I used to be on 2 Foyer, now I'm on 3. That might have been a misplay. Maybe I should have stayed at 2. But I don't know. I think this deck does decently. I'm a little bit saddened that we couldn't get a single win out of it. I would have rather this go 1-0 and we get to it with Bone Club. But this deck worked decently during scrims. But, you know, this was the first week and I wasn't entirely sure how much to read into just doing, like, power or trying to do, like, interesting meta angles. And I think I'm happy that I brought this. This deck can definitely be changed. I think Conductor of the Mist isn't a bad addition at all. Conductor of the Mist always felt bad because of Dancers, but Dancers isn't in this deck. And different ways you can build this, right? Like, I think Stirred Spirits is really cute with Opulent Fire. And I think there's a few things you can do with this deck to make it stronger and better and all that sort of nonsense. Maybe take out the Hush. Hush may not have been that important against Jace Lux, but I wanted it for, like, the Rumble Scion stuff. But, I don't know. That's that deck. Going on to their decks. This is Jace Lux. Only thing I really want to point out is Hexpliterator doesn't work against my deck because Hexpliterator needs them to take the damage before they get obliterated. It can't be would die because it would not can be die, you know? That sentence makes sense. We never ended up testing against Piltover Tellstones. That or anymore just never played Piltover Tellstones. So when they got rid of my landmark with that was like completely foreign to me. I completely forgot that was an option to them. And finally, this is their only like other difficult thing. Where I took silence in that one game was to deal with Albus Ferres. And they're not on Mage Seeker Conservator, and they're not even on Mage Seeker, like the 6/6 guy. Like, this deck's built a little bit differently. It's built more like a Fortimarcia Scouts list, right? As opposed to other forms of decks. Rumble Scion, this is their list. I think Rumble Scion's a really cute deck. If you wanted to play Rumble Scion, I think this is a fun way of doing it. Brutal Skirmish was really cute. They drew their one of Whirling Death twice. Bloody Business and Brutal Skirmish, though, are super cute in this deck. I really like this build, and I just like Rumble. Rumble's one of my favorite champions, so I might play this at some point. I might remove Scion. I don't really like Scion, but I love Rumble. I want to play this at some point in my life. And then this deck I banned. Here it is. Do what you want with it. Whatever. Okay, let's move on to reviewing the games themselves. Alright, this ban phase was pretty expected. I don't think there's anything that would have really changed during this ban phase. This is what we were expecting the whole time. Game 1, I think the mulligan was a little bit awkward. I didn't think Patty Poro would be too important when we had Omen Hawk and Tusk Speaker and stuff. Patty Poro makes a lot of sense when we've got the Bone Club, but I thought that there are other probably decent Bone Club targets in this deck, and they don't need to be Patty Poro necessarily, so I thought we can not have Patty Poro here. And Na is something I got rid of because I think Na isn't the strongest card in this deck. I think Na is fine, but I really wanted other stuff like a big 3-drop or something like that, or get the 7 cost Kai that like reduces his cost by a lot. We obviously end up drawing Pigeon and Darius, and I think these early turns are pretty fine. I think all of them make sense. I don't think there's too much concern. I know, like, unlike normal, you don't have the whole VOD to go through, right? It's all chopped up and cut. I included every single play and every single draw, but it's not the easiest thing to peruse, especially if you've not watched that before, that sort of, like, really awkwardly edited thing. I decided not to play Omen Hawk here. This is for 2 reasons. One is that I really wanted to keep this up. I thought this would be really nice to have up. Draven's mustache, and I didn't really see what the point of Omen Hawk was at this point anymore, right? Like, I get to get +1/+1 to something later on. Fantastic. I'd rather just, like, save mana for Bone Clubs or, like, this, right? Like, I don't think the +1/+1 really matters that much anymore. And what are we blocking? Like, what do we need this to block with? It just didn't make sense to me to need it. Now, they got Lifesteal here. I was pretty upset that they got Lifesteal initially, but it's not as bad as the next keyword they end up getting. By the way, if you just look in the corner during the intro video, you will see this number down here tick down a lot. I spend a lot of time thinking. But we play Na, we do this, and I'm really happy at how the Draven mustaches go here. This was pretty good for me, and I'm really happy that this is how it ended up working out. I did it on the Na, so that Pokey Stick would cost 0 mana as opposed to 2 mana. Just like a really minor thing to keep in mind there. But we do that. I hit the Nexus so that Na would level up. And so I draw a card. It's probably not like the most necessary thing to do it, but I thought giving Na some stats might be nice into some of the plays they can do. And I wanted to give this vulnerable. I thought this would be a really good thing to give vulnerable. One, because it's got the lifesteal, so they can like make this annoying if they do some certain things to it. And also, it being a low HP unit, if I'm planning on doing Darius on turn 6, which I end up doing, I really like the idea of threatening this unit properly. So I thought giving that vulnerable will be fine. They play Rumble. I actually don't notice it has Elusive for a little bit of time. So I play the Bone Club, and then I realize, oh, they have Elusive. Now, the Bone Club was to block this. I think even if I knew it had Elusive, I probably would have still done the Bone Club, but this Elusive was pretty good for them. It's just like, if you look at their hand and their board, what is their win condition? How are they planning on beating me if I play Darius? They've got Whispered Words. They can, like, Whispered Word stuff, but the only scary card from here on out is Flame Spitter. Flame Spitter plus Whispered Words, or Flame Spitter plus Brutal Skirmish were the only things that could have ever threatened me here, and I thought, if they've even got Flame Spitter and stuff, that's cards that are no longer in their deck. Like, who cares if they've got in their hand? Like, who cares if they've got the Flame Spitter plus the Whispered Words? We're going to outvalue them, especially with 2 weapons. That it didn't matter too much anymore, right? Especially since if they've got Brutal Skirmish, they're going to lose their Rumble anyway, right? If they've got Whispered Words and Flame Spitter, good job them, but we can't really play around that sort of hand anyway, so I thought we can just develop Darius, and that ends up just basically being the win, right? This pull is interesting to me. From memory, I pull this here, just because if I pull this here and they block this with Rumble, Darius isn't flipped, and they're not forced to block with the 3-1. So I'd rather force them to lose the 3-1 and lose my Pigeon and all of that than not lose the 3-1. It was something along those lines. I think this pull is worth it. They've only got 1 mana. They can't really do too much. I could have pulled this way, but we get to deny the lifesteal. I think this is fine. There are a few ways you could have done it, but I think this pull makes sense. And I don't want to put Pigeon first here because I was pretty sure that they had to block this with Rumble. Right, so that way Pigeon only loses to this, and that way Sorry, why does this matter? Why can't I put pigeon first? Because even if they block that like that... I guess I could have put pigeon first. I guess it didn't matter. Maybe I'm missing something. In the moment, I really thought that this play mattered, the way I pulled things, but maybe they just didn't. I'm unsure. I knew I had to attack with pigeon to force them to block with their units, but interesting. Yep. We do that, they attack. And then they play 2 whispered words here. You saw in the thing. 2 whispered words basically cost... Like, they can't do anything if they play 2 whispered words. Like, what is that going to accomplish for them? That's anti-tempo, right? I could have played more units, but I felt bad that they couldn't do anything, so I just wanted to win the game quickly. I could have played more units, but they generally didn't have anything that they could have done, I don't think. Like, even if they had something like double brutal skirmish here, like, that isn't preventing them from dying. So it didn't really matter in the end. This game. I think this mulligan is wrong. I get rid of Vile Feast and Vengeance. I should have kept both the Vile Feast and Vengeance. I needed to have a plan for Rumble. At some point, I thought my plan for Rumble would be simply just block and use Divine Judgment. Or draw into something like a Foyer. I thought a Foyer might be really necessary. But I should have kept Vile Feast and Vengeance. Or at the very least, I should have kept Vile Feast. Kicking Vengeance might be a viable line, but sure. We kick those cards. We get a Gwen, and we get a lot of Gwens. I think we get like 5 Gwens during the entire course of these next 2 games. We get this sort of draw. I think these turns are fine. They do all of this stuff. Blah-de-blah-de-blah. They don't attack, which was interesting. We attack into here. They can't really block with Rumble because we've got the ability to threaten Pale Cascade, and they can't really block with this for very similar reasons. But this Vile Feast. I love Rumble. I really love the spell shield thing. I think that's lots of fun. I just, like, forgot that this says 6 instead of 4, right? It didn't really come across in my mind. Like, there wasn't, in my mind, a visual connection that they're probably quite likely to level up Rumble here. So I thought, I want to do this so that I can get this to proc in case they want to develop, right? That way I can kill Rumble before anything happens. I don't actually need to do it now, though. I could have done this next turn. I also wanted this to block the 4/4 with. Because if they go wide, like, we can block this, and then we're going to be blocking with Gwen here, and that's not the most fun thing to do in the WoW. I think the correct play here was to not Vile Feast. I think the correct play was just to take a bunch of damage and realize they've only got 3 cards in hand. We can do this and this. We can apply a lot of pressure. They don't have good ways of killing Gwen, especially through a Pale Cascade. If we just pass, let them hit us, we do both of these things, and just, like, let it sit, we'll feel happy. Right, we'll be taking, like, a fair bit of damage, but we're also healing every turn, and we've got a second Gwen, even if they do have ways of killing Gwen, such as, like, a Brutal Skirmish. So, the correct play here, pass, they attack us. If they don't attack us, we can put Vile Feast, Sunburst in the stack. We don't need to obliterate Rumble. Right, like, oh, silence Rumble, like, that's okay. If they want to develop this for some reason. But I make the misplay, I do the Darius emote, everyone goes sad. I do thread the needle, because I can't win anymore. If Rumble stays around, I can't win, so I need to thread the needle here. And they have their other Wailing Death, right? They could have had Wailing Death, they could have had any sort of strike spell. This was pretty unlikely. And you can see that the timer was sort of ticking down quite a bit, because I was so disappointed in myself with the play that I had made. And I think this is like, this game was very winnable. I don't need out-of-the-way Divine Judgment to win this game. I can win through tempo, right? I can win through Gwen, which is an unkillable machine. I can win through Taric. I can win through... Sparklefly, which they can only kill through strike spells. They've only got so many forms of interaction. Like, they're an aggressive deck. They don't run as much interaction as other forms of this sort of deck does. And so we can just, like, aggressive them with, like, a lot of things. We even have, like, Overwhelm Infernum on the Gwen, right? Like, we've got options. And all we need to do is defeat their main threatening tools and apply pressure. And what we ended up doing was neither. And so this matchup should have definitely been a win. Even just ideologically, even without the out-of-the-way stuff. Out-of-the-way would have helped, but it wasn't necessary. But misplay happens. And, you know, the rest is history, right? They do that, Rumble levels up. And at this point, the game is over. How many hollowed do I have at this point? I know I click on it, just like for a second. I got 3 hollowed. So, I was considering Serpent plus Pale Cascade to try and kill Rumble. That seemed like a pretty viable option, right? My concern was that I only had 1 blocker if I did that, and they can definitely develop a unit. They might be developing 2 units and probably Scion as well. I didn't really want to do Serpent, Pale Cascade, try and kill Rumble, still possibly lose to, you know, Whispered Words or something as well. While if we go for Trickster stuff, we only really lose to Whispered Word. We lose to similar things, like we lose to Interaction, but at least this is threatening damage and putting them on a little bit of a clock. And I think it may be giving us Atro outs. No, that's not true. But this is a very similar sentence to Challenger, right? Like both of them are very similar sentences. Challenger loses to Pokestick, but they're similar sentences in the fact that like when we inevitably go to kill their Scion, they're going to be able to interact with our stuff and leave us with only one blocker. If we have a Challenger unit and we're doing that, it's a very similar thing. They just use a strike spell, we lose it, blah, 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 blah. If their card was Brutal Skirmish, this would have been a more likely win had we taken this plus Pale, like the Challenger plus the Pale. But even still, I think that it wasn't the best option, right? Because they still will have the Scion, and when we go to kill the Scion, they can kill the Gwen at that point. They are going in for a bunch of damage. We'd need to like find some way of winning the game still. They've also got this like... I just don't see it. I just don't see that being a win. They've got enough attackers that even if they kill... Even if this happens, they get the Scion, it kills the Gwen when we go in for the kill. It doesn't... This isn't a winning hand. With them having a strike spell, it's not really possible to win. And I think playing this... I want to say this gives us a better chance. I really do. Does it? Like, we're losing to the same stuff either way. I know I'm rambling a lot. I don't have... I haven't prepared this as much as I would have normally liked to. But my thinking is that if we go for the Serpent, we lose to a strike spell, right? We lose to a strike spell from them being aggressive. If we go for the Trickster, we lose to a strike spell from them being aggressive as well. The Serpent just removes this unit, or they've got the strike spell, and the Trickster... If they don't have the strike spell, what's better? And I think the Trickster's better if they don't have the strike spell, right? Lets us threaten damage, forces them to block our Gwen, forces them to block stuff. We don't have to pre-commit Pale. But that's not the worst thing in the world to commit Pale. I'm uncertain. One good thing about the Serpent, by the way, is if we do the Serpent and Pale Cascade, we can afford Graviton, which lets us stun this unit. And then we do that, and if they've got the strike spell... If they got the strike spell, they just like sacrifice this and then they keep the Rumble alive, and then they play Scion, and then we do this, and then this attacks us, this attacks us. We're forced to block at least one of them, we lose our Gwen. Although Gwen would be flipping, I think. I might be inclined to think the correct place is Serpent, but this is also knowing what their hand has, right? I don't know. I'm sure you guys have your own opinion about whether the Serpent or the Trickster is better. My instinct was that the Trickster is the better line for trying to play to win. I think the Serpent, taking the Serpent gives us a higher chance of having worse draws, while the Trickster gives us a chance of having better draws, right? Like an out of the way or a Divine Judgment makes Trickster winning, right? Like if I have Divine Judgment, all of a sudden Trickster lets us win the game, right? While the Serpent, then it's just like, can I draw out of the way into another draw card, or do they draw second Scion, right? That's my thinking for Trickster, but I think maybe in this given scenario it might have been better to do Serpent. That's close. That's really interesting. I mostly just considered this game as the game where I play Pale Cascade at Vile Feast badly. But this works. This is actually more interesting than I gave it credit for. Anyway, they play the Scion. We have to do this. They do that. I try and look for like a Hush. I don't even think it matters anymore if I get Hush, and it's game. And then the final game. Oh, we did have a Tarek. I forgot that I discarded this. I think it's hard to justify keeping Tarek in this, but sometimes I think Tarek may have been worth keeping. I don't know. Mulliganing with this deck is very weird. I'm not entirely used to it. I think there are lines where you can full mulligan for out of the way. I think keeping Foya plus Gwen is really nice, although not having Foya on their odd token is a little bit awkward. Foya's just when it's their odd token as a development punisher, and then you get two really quickly. So maybe I should have kicked Foya and kept Tarek. I could have even seen a world where I keep Tarek and remove everything else to try and get out of the way stuff. But I keep Opulent Foya and Gwen. We get another Gwen. This discard, I don't know. I don't know if I was supposed to discard on it. Lamb's Respite is so important for the combo, especially against this enemy. But I also really wanted Dog, and I really wanted Messenger. Those are the same thing. I really wanted Dog, and I also got super nervous seeing Albus Ferris, which is something that we weren't really testing with before, and I wanted like a silence for it. I could have also discarded a Gwen. I think discarding a Gwen might have been slightly better. But I don't know. I wanted to kill this so they don't get as much mana from it, because I am going to struggle to kill this without Vile Feast. And so I thought discarding this in a hand that does play a bit more tempo-y than other hands might be fine. But I don't know. I think that's a tough decision. They play that. We do all of this. I think most of this stuff is fine. This pass by them is super cool. They're threatening Jace here. I could have taken this pass back. I know Janspel would have said take this pass back, but I really wanted my messenger dog so that I could have blockers and also try and find my out of the way. And so not having messenger dog really saddened me, so I thought maybe I can look for messenger dog here. By the way, double stun was available, I think, from Space Sketcher, right? Yeah, I think double stun was probably better than Equinox, by the way. I think double stun's a better card. But I got really scared by seeing Albus Ferris in the deck because the deck lists were only available like 3 minutes before the game was out. So I didn't have that much practice against like the specific deck lists compared to that of like Aegis or Sentinels where you know about them for like a day and a bit beforehand. Right. Anyway, we do this. I decide to play Circle Star Chart. I sort of regret it. And I think I took the right option of Moonglow. I think Moonglow was fine, especially with how the hand was looking. I think Moonglow made sense. Trickster seemed decent, but I really didn't want to lose to like Shock Blast stuff too easily. So I thought I'd do it this way. They play Lux. I attack. This all works out fine. They can't block Gwen with Lux because of Veil Feast, right? Do this, threaten some damage. They'd go for this. I do a lot of passing here. I think these passes are fine. I want to replay Gwen and I want to like find times in my Pale Cascade, but you can see like these are situations where we need Conductor of the Mists, and these are definitely situations where we need Solari Sunhawk. Conductor of the Mist and Solari Sunhawk would have been really nice here, as well as a Tarek. Like just imagine Tarek in this position, right? It blocks this guy. We've got Pale Cascade for the next turn. We can play Gwen. We can do stuff. What are they going to do against a Tarek besides like a Hex Splitterator, right? Like Tarek would be really good in this position. So I wish I hadn't discarded that Tarek earlier, because this Gwen here I'm pretty sure is a Tarek. They do this, which is understandable. I get really antsy about the fact that if they pass here, I just lose the game, so I make sure to play stuff. There are many good options here. I think Graviton makes a lot of sense for Albus Ferris, although we've got an anti-Albus Ferris tool slightly, although this should have just been a stun. Infernum lets us go for lethals, especially with double Gwen, right? Like, we might just need Infernum, go for lethals, ignore the capacity of getting the out-of-the-way stuff happening. And discarding Lamb's Respite made me think, I think it's too late to go for the out-of-the-way control stuff. They've got more cards in hand. I don't really have a Vengeance either, so, like, the cards that I need to draw to try and win this game have all of a sudden become out-of-the-way and Vengeance or Ruination and a win condition like Sparklefly or an Infernum, right? I didn't have the possibility of going for the out-of-the-way lethal at this point. So I thought, I'll go for Infernum. I've got enough Gwen so that I can probably threaten Infernum. And if I just draw one more unit, then Infernum plus Gwen can definitely become a win condition all of a sudden, right? Whether it's Tarek, whether it's Sparklefly, whatever. Crescentum and Gravitum are great ways of dealing with this unit here. Calibrum would probably be better than Crescentum because I don't think they're on sharp sight. So I went for Infernum. That might have looked weird to you, but I think Infernum was the right choice given the hand and given the situation. However, if we go back, like, imagine if this was Tarek. I think I really regret mulliganing Tarek away in this matchup. I think that was a really bad decision by me. But this is results-based analysis, so I don't know. Maybe that was the right play. Anyway, we do this, they do that. I think all of this passing is fine. I didn't want them to kill my Sparklefly, so I didn't play Sparklefly. I play Gwen. I decided to play Sparklefly here. I think maybe Butler might have been better. But I don't know, because, like, if they do Shock Blast, right, which they do end up doing. They do Shock Blast. They hit this and the Butler. Now what do? If I open, it's this. If I open, then, like, I can't replay this because they're just going to shoot this, right? So it doesn't change anything whether they've got Shock Blast or not. But if they do Shock Blast and I pass, they probably will pass back. They probably won't kill Gwen. But if they do kill Gwen, then I get to replay Gwen, and now Gwen has more HP. Maybe Butler was better. Hell, maybe even, like, Infernum was better. But then if I do Infernum, like, then I can't do Gwen and Sparklefly, right? Like, once they do Hex Splitterator or whatever. I don't know. Maybe this was better. They do the Shock Blast, it kills this and this. Or it kills this and hits this. Then if I play Sparklefly, they choose which one to kill. We attack with the other one. We probably end up just healing too with Gwen and killing the 3/3. I guess it's the same sentence either way. I'm just like developing into Lux Laser when I wanted to open into Lux Laser. I think playing this now is better into... I don't know, what is it better into? Hex Splitterator? Yeah, playing this now is better into Hex Splitterator. Because if I do this and they Hex Splitterate Gwen, then I can no longer attack with the Sparklefly and they just pass. They don't need to play their laser, it's okay. So I think this is better into Hex Splitterator, but worse into Shock Blast. I think it's probably still better to do this maybe, but I'm not so sure. Anyway, they do the shock blast, we lose the game, blah, 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 blah. This is the point where the music stops because at this point the game's over. This Thread the Needle is really nice. I forgot to mention this during the deck review. Thread the Needle is great when you've got an out of the way, right? Like, Thread the Needle feels really good, and there were definitely games that I won because of Thread the Needle, because I just killed my own unit, and then Thread the Needle became an amazing vengeance tool all of a sudden, right? Especially against this deck, but without the out of the way of the Lamb's Respite, it just didn't work. Funnily enough, if I hadn't discarded Lamb's Respite, I could have started Lamb's Respite on this turn. It wouldn't have done that much because they would have just played a thingo, but I don't know. We can do Lamb's Respite and Infernum and this. We could have done all of that this turn, which would have been pretty decent. I think that actually may have been a better line. If we hadn't discarded this to get this. And then, like, we would have still had Species Sketcher in hand, right? So we could have discarded, like, this guy to get the double stun in the end. So that's another thing we could have gone through. We could have not discarded that. If this was Donut, I think that's one of the things he would have mentioned because he's really good at noticing that sort of thing. Anyway, we play this stuff. This block, I think a lot about. Like, I spent a lot of time thinking about this block. I think blocking here, I think not blocking here doesn't get me anything, right? Keeping this Butler around doesn't give me anything. And I need the Hollowed, right? Because I need the 5th Hollowed, right? That's what goes in the pool. Can I quickly see the amount of Hollowed that I get? 6. By the way, I'm listening to that song while I'm playing this game. Yeah, so that's 6, right? So it goes this, plus this is 6, and this is 9, right? My thought was, if I'm going to go for a win, I need to do it with this, plus this, and then maybe a Divine Judgment top deck, right? That's my win condition. Keeping that alive doesn't change anything. I need to win this turn, right? Blocking allows us to beat, like, Shock Blast Mystic hands, right? Or, like, double Mystic hands. So, I know they played 2 Shock Blasts and 1 Mystic already, but they've run a 3rd Shock Blast. They run a few Mystics. But anyway, we go for this. They have the Condemn off the Ferrous Financier and we lose the game. And nothing else really matters, right? You can see everything happen. Nothing ever happens. Nothing really matters. That was that. I really enjoyed this week. I can't wait for next week where we fight Tempo. Because he's also got some interesting decks, especially Aziralia, which recently got buffed with the domination stuff. I hope you guys enjoyed. I hope you somehow tried to enjoy the intro thing. It wasn't particularly well done. I tried my idea. In my head, it was really cool. It was going to be to the beat and, you know, all the stuff was going to be emotionally hitting. And then it was like a minute too long. And I already done like 1,000 cuts or something. Like, I didn't want to redo all of that. So that's that. I hope you enjoyed. And I shall see you next week. I'm scared my mic was peaking this whole time. I've just looked at OBS and the mic settings look a little bit awkward. Uh-oh. I hope it's not bad. Bye.